All right, let's go ahead and look at compositions based off of graphs today. And I'm going to start with the letter A here. And what it says is V of U of -1. I know it's hard to read, but you'll notice there's a little tail on the U, and the V's are just got that little tail on the top, that little nub on the top. So it's V of U of -1. The first thing that we are going to do is we're going to take and look at this. This is our input. So we are going, in order to find what V is, we need to find out the input for U of -1. And what it says is we start with U right here. And then what we do is we go and we look for the X value on U of -1. So we go over there and we look for -1 on the U, which is right here. There's the U graph. Go to -1 on the X, and then I look up and it brings me to an answer of 1. So now what I really have is, I know that U of -1 equals to 1. I'm going to say, well, what is V of 1? Okay, because this is the output of that. So now I say, okay, well, V of 1. So now I come over to the V graph, which is right over here, and I look for when X is equal to 1. So I go over to X equals 1, which is right here. I look up and we will find out that that answer is 2. So essentially what I'm saying is V of U of -1 equals to 2. Now if I go to the next one, I'm going to look at U of V of 5. That's part B. What that starts by saying is, instead of going to the U graph first, what we're going to do is we're going to go to the V graph first. So we're actually going to come over here to start. Okay, and once we go over there to start, we're going to look at the X value on the V graph. And so let's do that. I go X equals to 5 on the V graph, and I come over here and say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then I go down to, it looks like -2. So X equals 5, Y equals to -2. So this gets replaced with -2. And then I put the U there, and so it says U of -2. Now I need to go over to the U graph. That's the second step. So this time the X value is -2, which is the output value of that V graph. So I go X equals -2. That is right here. And it looks like at X equals -2, the value is 0. So V of -2 equals to 0. So the final statement would just be, okay, we know the answer is 0. So I'd say U of V of 5 equals to 0. Now we have one more. It goes through the longer process, which is part C. I'm going to go ahead and erase some of this stuff, okay? And at this point, what we're going to do is we have multiple things going on, okay? It actually is starting by saying we have V of U of 0 plus U of V of 4. So we actually have two parts that have to be taken care of. We have this first part here that's got to be taken care of, and we have this second part there that's going to be taken care of, and then we've got to add them together. So let's start with V of U of 0. So I'm going to go to U of 0. The U graph is right here. I go to 0 on the X equals to 0, and I get the answer, well, 0. So U of 0 equals to 0. So this whole entire part is now equal to 0. So I have to find V of 0. So now I come over to the V graph, which is right over here, and I say, well, what is V of 0? Well, V of 0, there's 0 on the X, is a value of 3. So I know that this piece is equal to 3. So I'm going to go ahead and put that under there, okay? Now I just have to go and figure out the other chunk that's there, okay? So let's go ahead and find the other chunk that's there. And that starts by saying, let's go with U of V of 4. So I start with X equals to 4, but I'm doing that on the V graph. So I go 1, 2, 3, 4, and I go down here and I get -1. And so I'm going to put U of -1. Now I've got to move to this graph over here, U of x. And I put -1 in there. When I put -1 in, it gives me the outcome of 1. So that tells me this is equal to 1. I'm going to replace this with a 1. Now I got to add them together. 3 plus 1 is 4. That is your final solution to that part.